Hello there everyone, welcome to the channel if you're new, welcome back if you aren't, I am EDJ. So last time we saw the battle of Wait, let me look at this. Cleidion? Yeah, it's been several days, I forgot how it's pronounced, but point is, we saw that battle between Samuel and his son versus Basil. Basil basically came up with the cool maneuver of going around, basically kind of a flank, finding a way around, Samuel's, defenses, and basically destroyed him, wrecked him in battle. And so, but Samuel still is around. Granted, he's not as strong as before, but, he's still around, so that's perhaps a potential threat. I have to say, it's interesting, this saga between Basil and Samuel has been very interesting to watch, because at first Samuel was definitely the stronger of the two, and what I mean by that is, like, early on, he gave Basil his first defeat, and then from then on, it seemed he was the stronger of the two. Basil wouldn't engage him directly in combat, and they had this weird, like, sort of, I don't know, like, back and forth here in Macedon, where they would take land and strongholds from each other. But I like how as the series has been progressing, Basil has gotten the upper hand, and the tables have just turned to where now Basil is the stronger of the two, and Samuel is the weaker. It's like this weird, like, I just noticed it, just how it completely shifted the power dynamic. So, yeah, they've been very great rivals. It's been like this rivalry, this back and forth. So it's been really fun to kind of watch, and Basil, basically handling things here in, Macedonia. So I'm really looking forward to seeing more Basil and of his great feats. So yes, we ought to get right into it. Without any further... Oh wait, but first, if you want to watch the original video, the link is down below. With that said, without any further ado, let us get to it. Let us watch, were they Emperor Basil II's greatest enemy? The Battle of Setina? Yeah, I think I said that right. The Battle of Setina.
Mountain fortress of Strumitsa having amounted to nothing, Emperor Basil finally decided to put the long campaign of 1014 to a halt. After receiving the voluntary submission of the Bulgarian stronghold of Melnik, a key guarding point leading to Sredets, the Basileus headed toward Constantinople. Halfway through the journey, when the imperial forces were entering the city of Mosinopolis, a critical message reached the emperor. On October 6, 1014, Samuel, arguably the most illustrious monarch in Bulgarian history and a living symbol of the struggle against Byzantium, passed away. The arrival of the Bulgarian captives of Cleidion supposedly triggered this untimely death.
Wow, and the dude was like 70, he was old, but the fact that he was still even leading battles is amazing. So yeah, I guess that ends the rivalry, with Basil getting the decisive victory last time. Man, that was such a great rivalry. Like, that was very fun to look back and forth, so... I almost thought they were gonna have another battle, but still, either way, Basil came out on top. That was... I have to give some credit to Samuel. The dude did really well, I think. Like, kind of being this rival and enemy to Basil. I don't know, that's... end of an era there,
The gruesome picture of the 1,000 or more blinded Bulgarian soldiers had been too much to handle for the old Tsar, who immediately suffered a heart attack. Several days later...
Dang! Basil killed him by giving him a heart attack. Yeah, like, the thing is, Basil blinded all those dudes, sent them there. Oh my gosh, Basil, like, indirectly killed him right there, or directly. That's hilarious. Man, that's... wow.
Samuel's eldest son, Gavrail, was crowned as the new Tsar in the major Macedonian stronghold of Bitoa. Basil had defeated the Bulgarians time and again, but they kept getting back on their feet. The emperor was left in no doubt that Constantinople's greatest threat lay in the west. But Basil was by now an aging ruler. Could he finish the job before his time comes? Whatever the future may hold, it will always be important to stay safe. The campaign of 1014 had left a bitter-sweet taste in Basil's mouth. Despite his overwhelming victory at Caledion, the emperor had lost one of his most senior commanders in the west and sacrificed thousands of skilled veteran soldiers. Aiming to turn the tables and exploit the death.
Yeah, Gavriel kind of got that decisive victory through an ambush, much like his father, so he seems like the second coming of his father, Samuel. And obviously from that, it shows Gavriel is not an idiot either. So now, it's almost like this saga continues to the next generation, right? Samuel's gone, but now his son seemingly is gonna carry the torch to be a thorn in Basil's side. So yeah, and Basil's not getting younger either, so it's like, can he finally put down these guys, or what?
Samuel to its fullest, Basil headed back to Bulgaria. Moving fast in typical fashion, the emperor quickly reached the city of Bitoa, catching the modest Bulgarian garrison there by surprise and preparing to storm the city.
Yeah, like I've said, I notice in this series, Basil relies heavily on speed and catching his opponents unawares. That seems to be like I said, it reminds me of Napoleon a lot, where Napoleon would just march super quick and outmaneuver and get his enemies. It seems Basil kind of reminds me of that, and that's favorable. I mean that as a completely favorable comparison, you know? And it's worked so well for Basil. He's just booking it, man.
Despite that, the siege would prove brief, as the emperor only resorted to burning a local palace of the late Samuel. While retreating to Thessaloniki, Basil sent 2 armies under Xiphias and the successor of Theophylact Botaniates, a certain Constantine Diogenes, northward to capture the forts of Stai and Prilep, both of which fell without much resistance. The following campaigning season of 1015 would prove fruitful for the Byzantines. In August, the emperor cleared the way to Bulgarian capital, Ohrid, after capturing the city of Muglan. The city's garrison was comprised of soldiers mustered from all corners of the rapidly disintegrating Tsardom. These men were commanded by several of the most senior Bulgarian noblemen, who would all fall captive to the emperor. Seeing an opportune moment to showcase his merciful side again, Basil won the allegiance of the captured aristocrats by showering them with titles and promises of a lenient Byzantine rule.
Yeah, it is interesting to see Basil's diplomacy and how he uses it. It isn't just straight up conquest and killing, like he uses a lot of persuasion and, you know, to win people over to him, which is something that's been very interesting to look at. Because it makes him stand out from everyone else we've covered so far on this channel. He really likes to use it, and yeah, he's very good at it. He's very great at it.
A week after the fall of Muglan, the Bulgarian Tsar Gavriel was murdered in a conspiracy organized by his cousin Ivan.
Never mind. What I said earlier, he seems he's gonna be the new Thor. Nah, he didn't really get the chance. Oh boy.
Vladislav, who then usurped the throne. Shaky enough beforehand, the Bulgarian state was now hanging by a thread. The morale of the Bulgarian aristocracy was decreasing by the day, and the idea of an imminent Byzantine subjugation now seemed like a favorable alternative to the near-constant war. Yet several seasoned Bulgarian generals remained fiercely loyal to the Bulgarian cause. Late in 1015, the emperor entered the Bulgarian capital of Ohrid virtually unopposed. On his way to the nearly abandoned city, Basil had left behind a sizable contingent under the command of the eunuch Orestes. This force was tasked with plundering the densely populated plains of Pelagonia, but Orestes' men were lured and crushed in an ambush organized by Ibetzes, one of Władysław's generals. Upon learning of this, Basil left Ohrid and attempted to force Ibetzes into a pitched battle. After several frustrating weeks of pursuing and being eluded by Ibetzes, the emperor retreated to Thessaloniki. With tensions flaring up on the empire's eastern frontier, Basil headed back to Constantinople in early 1016. During the emperor's absence, much had changed on the eastern edges of the Byzantine world. A powerful state had emerged in the Caucasus under the reign of King Bagrat III, who had united the two principalities of Abkhazia and Iberia, giving rise to the Kingdom of Georgia. In 1014, Bagrat passed away and was succeeded by his ambitious teenage son, George I. The adolescent monarch used Byzantium's distractions in the west to occupy a large portion of the newly established Byzantine theme of Iberia. Aware of the sheer might of the Byzantine war machine, the young and strong-headed George attempted to ally himself with Al-Hakim, the caliph of the Fatimid Empire. This Shia Muslim superstate had enjoyed a relationship of relative peace with Byzantium for the last 15 years. Despite that, the so-called Mad Caliph would exploit a prolonged succession crisis in the Emirate of Aleppo to transform this Byzantine vassal state into a Fatimid province. Refusing to overextend his forces by campaigning on two frontiers, Basil decided to react mildly to the rising Fatimid and Georgian aggression, imposing a trade embargo on the Egyptians while completely ignoring the latter, at least for the time being. By the end of 1016, Basil was back campaigning in Bulgaria. This time, the emperor focused his war aims against the northwestern fringes of the Tsardom. This region, now home to the present-day capital of Bulgaria, was under the rule of a skilled Bulgarian warlord, Krakra, who had repulsed all prior attempts of Byzantine conquest. This time would be no different, and after an unsuccessful 88-day-long siege on the fortress of Pernik, Basil and his men were sent packing. While the emperor was wintering in Thessaloniki, Krakra and his suzerain Ivan Władysław attempted to form an anti-Roman coalition with the feared Pechenegs. These nomads, who ruled over the western fringes of the Eurasian steppe, had made their name known throughout Eastern Europe. Aware of the military prowess of these steppe warriors, Władysław and his governor knew that they were Bulgaria's only chance of turning the tables in their favor. The Tsar planned to march to the Sofia Valley, join his forces with Krakra, and take the fight to the subjugated former Bulgarian heartland of Moesia. With the beginning of the campaigning season of
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people are it seems like Rome right now is completely surrounded by enemy. You know, on the west here we have Bulgaria, which if they were to succeed in getting that, coalition going, the west would have a strong opposition to Basil, and the east, things are slowly turning as, there's kind of a bit of, people forming. It seems like a coalition, right? So, man, Basil's really gonna have to, put an end to Bulgaria or something, I don't know. But, yeah, he seems like he could potentially end up being surrounded by enemies, so I'm wondering, how is he gonna be able to finally put these guys to rest?
1017, Basil marched to the Bulgarian-controlled stronghold of Kastoria. While besieging the city, the emperor was informed of the Bulgarian attempts to ally with the Pechenegs. Deeply concerned by this news, The Basileus left Bulgaria, fortified some of the border strongholds such as Broia, and headed northwards. The emperor likely planned on intercepting the Tsar's force before it could link up with Krakra and his potential nomadic allies. However, before Basil could reach the border, he was informed that the Bulgarian Pecheneg coalition-building attempts had failed.
Whew.
The shrewd governor of the Danubian city of Drasta Tzotzikios had successfully discouraged the Pechenegs from collaborating with Krakra.
Yeah, I love that, you know, the Romans at this time really rely on, you know, diplomacy, giving money out to ensure enemies don't act too out of line. Okay, good job. I was kind of like, man, if these guys could get it, this could prolong everything or make so much more issues. So, okay, happy to see that that solution was solved with good old money.
With the much-needed Pecheneg support failing to materialize, Krakra refused to go on the offensive and risk leaving his fortified position. Tsar Ivan Vladislav was left on his own. As always, Byzantine intelligence quickly transferred this crucial information to Basil, who halted his march northwards and returned to the southern border. The emperor planned to continue slowly reducing Bulgarian strongholds in Macedonia. To that aim, Basil encamped near the Bulgarian fort of Setina. This former hunting residence of Samuel had been repurposed to serve as a storage facility. Setina stored extensive amounts of wheat and other resources meant to supply the Bulgarian army for the coming winter and campaigning season. Basil had already constructed a fortified camp near the stronghold by early autumn. His large force was comprised of Varangians, Tagmata forces, and a large contingent of Balkan provincial recruits, under the overall command of Constantine Diogenes, the new Dux of Thessaloniki. Not long after their encampment, the emperor ordered his men to surround the fortress and storm its walls. The small Bulgarian garrison heroically held its position. After several unsuccessful assaults during the coming days, the emperor decided to call off his men. The reason for this temporary halt of military action was scouting reports of incoming Bulgarian forces.
Yeah, I noticed. Wait. Yeah, I noticed Ivan was getting closer. I was like, is he about to fight him? Yeah, I noticed Ivan was getting closer, so it seems like he's gonna go for a straight-up assault there.
Bulgarian forces. Encamping his men a couple of miles away from the Byzantine position, Ivan Vladislav was preparing to lift the Byzantine siege. Knowing full well that the Bulgarians would avoid a pitched battle with a large Byzantine force at any cost, the emperor sent only Constantine's contingent to engage Vladislav's force. Basil likely planned to lure the entire Bulgarian army.
Okay, I'm seeing this. Basil's like, they won't give me a decisive battle, so he's sending a small portion, potentially dangerous if they're caught, but if what he's saying is true, he hasn't finished yet. I just paused, but if his plan is to lure them, then yes, this could finally give Basil the pitched battle he needed against the leader, right? So, yeah, it's risky sending out a smaller force, but if it's to lure them, I could see it working. Alright, Basil, let's see what's going on.
To attack the smaller force of Constantine. Once the bulk of the Tsar's army had been engaged, Basil could strike with the rest of his army without leaving his camp abandoned for too long. Vladislav, a skilled general in his own right, had quickly dispersed and hidden his men around the local forested hills. The Tsar then sent a small cavalry force close to Diogenes, luring the unsuspecting Romans close to the ridges.
Oh my goodness, these Bulgarians and their ambushes. They've been beyond effective though. They gave Basil his first defeat. Samuel's son defeated. Their strategy is always ambush, and it works perfectly. Oh no, how's this gonna go?
And swiftly surrounding them. Cornered, Diogenes and his men had no choice but to fight for their lives. The Byzantines were not quick to lose hope, knowing that the legendary Bulgar slayer would not abandon his men. As it turned out, Basil had...
Yeah, so it came across it seemed like what he said is Basil wanted to lure them so he could, like, attack them, but Ivan instead lured them into a trap. But luckily, it's probably a good thing that Basil didn't send everyone, because now he can have sort of a relief, this portion of his army with the one he didn't, commit to battle, so... Yeah.
Would not abandon his men. As it turned out, Basil had sent scouts to monitor the skirmish closely. Quickly learning of the Bulgarian ambush, the 60-year-old emperor mounted his horse personally.
Dang, 60. That's old. I mean, for then, yeah, it must have been old. I don't know about the average lifespan, I guess, throughout the sort of medieval era, but... yeah, that must have been old, right? It's amazing when you see him just still leading.
Leading the rest of his forces against the Bulgarians.
Join large-scale battles with military vehicles. The online action game War Thunder has received a major...
Before Basil could even reach the place of the ambush, Bulgarian lookouts informed the Tsar of the incoming imperial force.
Man, lookout after lookout, attack, traps turn into traps, just they're going back and forth. I wasn't sure what to expect, but he doesn't seem to be a slouch either. Wow.
This news spread like wildfire among the Bulgarian army, causing mass panic, which then resulted in a frantic and disorganized retreat. Diogenes used this, pursuing and cutting down many of Vladislav's men. By the time of Basil's arrival at the scene, the battle had already been over. The emperor was greeted by a pile of bodies and an almost abandoned Bulgarian camp, with a few hundred unlucky soldiers who failed to retreat on time and fell captive, among them the Tsar's own nephew.
Dang, that was back and forth. That was wild, but I really liked that. Obviously, I don't think Basil's original plan played through, but it still worked out because, fortunately, by him not giving his full army, he was able to lure them into sort of a battle. And it worked out because as soon as he could march with the rest of his army, this relief force, it just panicked everyone. So this really worked out in his favor completely, even though I don't think he planned it exactly like that. Still worked out for him, huh? Wow.
After thoroughly plundering the Bulgarian tents, the emperor resumed the siege of Setina. The stronghold fell shortly after, and its vital provisions soon became Byzantine property. Following this victory, Basil decided to set off for the capital. But Tsar Ivan Vladislav's resolve to fight was yet to be crushed. At the turn of 1018, the Bulgarian Tsar besieged Dyrrhachium. However, before he could achieve much, a devastating enemy sally inflicted heavy casualties on the Bulgarians, with the Tsar himself perishing in battle. The death of their monarch was probably all the excuse the remaining Bulgarian nobles needed to accept the generous Byzantine terms of submission. After nearly 50 years of near-constant warfare, their states were devastated and their manpower exhausted. They had had enough. The spring of 1018 was a most satisfying...
Man, what a happy accident. Ivan went off and got himself killed. So yeah, now comes it seems like they're going to Basil can solve this now diplomatically and just, like, I'm gonna assume he's gonna absorb this all right back, huh?
One for the aging Basil. The emperor went on a tour around Bulgaria, accepting submissions from local Bulgarian nobles and appointing Byzantine officials. Ironically, the first Bulgar aristocrat to pay allegiance to Basil was the unruly Krakra.
Wow. Man, that's kind of the end of it, isn't it? Like, this whole rivalry between Basil and Bulgaria is finally over, and man, like, nearly 50 years of battling, right? But wow, look at that. All of it is back under Roman rule. Basil has, like, once again restored and expanded, you know, Roman territory, and just finally, I guess, brought peace to the West, and that's just amazing. Like, you know, Basil handled this very slowly, methodically. Like, it wasn't like, you know, he was just taking strongholds left and right, like over here. He won people over, he won battles, but he also just, I think he handled it in such a unique way than we've seen anyone else handle things in all these series we watch. So yeah, great job, Basil. He's completely restored so much of the West. Wow.
Nearly all major magnates of the country followed suit. However, a few did resist. Ever loyal to the Bulgarian cause, Ibetses fortified himself in his fortress in the Albanian mountains, refusing to surrender. But after several weeks of being besieged by a large Byzantine army, the old general voluntarily surrendered, only to have his eyes gouged out by his captor. Cruel when he needed to be, but merciful when it suited him.
Yeah, Basil could play the brutal. I kind of like that. He kind of tempers brutality and mercy. Like, he walks a fine line between the two, I noticed. But, like, it seems like he mainly tries to lean more on mercy and trying to handle things more peacefully. So, yeah.
Basil skillfully earned the loyalty of the local landholders. The emperor subsequently transformed Bulgaria into a Katapanate, an administrative unit that enjoyed more autonomy than their core provinces. He allowed many Bulgarian traditions to remain unabated, permitting the payment of taxes in kind and preserving some of the independence of the Bulgarian church. After completing his tour in Bulgaria,
yeah, it's nice to see that administrative aspect of Basil, because, you know, while Basil definitely has proven himself competent as a, you know, commander, I think where I'm starting to see him shine more is just, you know, handling things in more, you know, either through payment or diplomacy. Like, it's very interesting. It's a very just good emperor. Like, very great at this.
Basileus travelled to Athens, the first emperor since Constans II to do so. He attended a ceremony in the Parthenon, which had long been repurposed to serve as a church, before journeying back to Constantinople. Basil II's life's work had been completed. Bulgaria had been subdued. Yet, for as long as the old emperor could still raise his sword, he would not rest. The East called for his attention yet again, and Basil answered. If you stayed around this far, thank you for watching.
Dang.
Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment as a sacrifice.
Yeah, so, yeah, Basil handled that very well. I really liked, I really liked seeing that. You know, Basil has finally gotten the big W over Bulgaria. He's finally subdued the West, and yeah, just handled that long rivalry, and Basil came out on top. There were setbacks, but it's amazing how he never, he's been defeated, but never broken, in a sense. And just the way he handled it through so many different ways, you know, through winning people over, showing mercy, showing brutality, winning battles, you know, being a bit slower and more methodical, and also some good old luck, right? With some of his enemies just killing each other. Just, yeah, that was an amazing way that he kind of conquered, you know, that area back, and he's restored so much of the West back to Rome. So, yeah, once again, just an overall great display on Basil's part. And I'm really looking forward, because there's only one more video left, and we're gonna be seeing what Basil can do, you know, and I guess in his final later years. So I will be jumping to that, and I will be seeing you all in the next one. Bye, everyone.